So I'm very pleased to introduce our speaker, Gord, who will give us information on the topic restorative justice. Welcome, Gord.
Thank you, Michael. Well, I've got some little bookmarks here which I'll pass out, which you can keep, and there's also a brochure. I'll just send these around. There's a couple each if you want. We may have to share the brochures. I'm not sure if there's enough. Restorative justice is it now seems to be taking center stage, particularly after the recent election. Our federal attorney general is giving some focus to restorative justice, and Nelson is fortunate now to have a restorative justice program under the auspices of the Nelson Police Department. It's not brand new. The restorative justice has existed here in the Kootenays since I think about 2001, and that was through the RCMP. So there's actually two separate organizations. The RCMP have their own group. They just recently had their annual general meeting. One of the challenges is that there's different offices for the RCMP, different, I wouldn't say precincts, but within the Kootenays there's a number of different police departments with the RCMP. The advantage we have with the Nelson Police is that we're centralized here, and so the focus of the Nelson Restorative Justice Group that I'm part of is just within the Nelson Police Department. This started about coming up to 2 years ago. A man named Jerry Sobey has come to Nelson a couple of years ago to be with his grandchildren. He had lived in Cranbrook. And in Cranbrook, Jerry was instrumental in starting the restorative justice process there with the RCMP. And it was a very successful program. So when he got to Nelson in the spring of 2014, he advertised in the paper. There was an article calling for volunteers. And through May, June of 2014, they took in volunteers, and they chose a number of us. There was about 20 of us chosen for training. The commitment for restorative justice to be part of the Nelson Police Department Restorative Justice Program, we had to commit to about approximately 10 hours a month of volunteer work. We're all volunteers. None of us are professionals. None of us are paid, except for we have a part-time coordinator, Anita Werner, who works in the police department as our coordinator, and I'll talk a little bit more about her role in a minute. But we had to make a commitment for 2 years to take our training and then to volunteer to do the restorative justice process. And we started out in the fall of 2014. Sorry, I think I'm out by year. Maybe, yeah, no, it was 2014 because it's a year and a half ago. With the 20 or so volunteers, we would meet every Saturday, once a month in Saturday for a whole day, and also then one evening a month for 3 hours. And Jerry took us through some very extensive training. He got some training material from a number of places in BC which are active with restorative justice. Victoria, Langley, and there's going to be a provincial body working on getting organization province-wide. You may have noticed in the news that Winnipeg, Manitoba, has now got a Restorative Justice Act. The provincial legislature has passed a Restorative Justice Act for the province, and so they're actually putting money against that and moving forward in Manitoba. We hope to be doing the same thing in BC here. Jerry taught us well all through the fall of 2014. We had our training, and in December we had a graduation ceremony where Mayor Deb Kozak was there, and Assistant Chief Burkhart, who will become our police chief. He was there giving us our certificates, and so we were then officially able to become co-facilitators and mentors within the program. And oh, by the way, I welcome any questions as anything comes up. Just shout out or raise your hand or something, and I don't mind being interrupted if there's anything that needs clarification. So we started then about a year ago taking the lighter cases that the police would recommend to us. The things like we had the bank robbery, that was beyond our scope. Things like marital discord and any kind of violence, we don't do cases like that. But we do files such as shoplifting, damage under 5,000, mischief, resisting arrest, drunk and disorderly. We've also now finally got our first motor vehicle charge. So there's a variety of things, but they're really first-time offenders, and very often they're young people. As trained facilitators, the way we work in teams of 3, sometimes 2 if it's a smaller case, where we assess the situation, and we meet together with all the people involved and get everybody prepared. And then the ultimate is to have a circle somewhat like this, where everybody involved sits down, and there's a process, and I'll explain the process too in a minute here. I've got a little poster here that shows what the process is like. And I'm not sure if you can all see it, but we step down from the top here. The very first issue is a crime is committed.
Can you step back a bit and then we can see it?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
How's that?
Yeah.
Okay, so a crime is committed, and the Nelson police are called. So the police get involved immediately. So we've got our little pictures here. There's we call them the RP, the responsible person. Other places would call them the offender. The phrase that we use is responsible person, because they are actually responsible for the act. And in order to become part of the restorative justice process, they have to take responsibility for what they've done. There's also an affected person. We call it AP, or the victim. But to balance it off, affected people are the people that have had something done to them, the victim of the crime. Then, of course, over on the far side here, we have the police officer involved. At this point, the police officer has a decision to make. And Jerry Sobey, he was our trainer, and he's now taken on a little bit of a higher role. He is working with each of the Nelson police members one-on-one to train them in terms of what kind of offenses can they refer to the restorative justice program. So the police at this point have a decision to make. They say, okay, this is a light crime. It's not totally serious. So we think that restorative justice can prevail here, that we can involve. Yes?
Does the responsible person or the affected person have some say in that, or is that just something that the officer tries to figure out with them, or?
To begin with, the officer says, yes, this is a candidate for restorative justice, but then both of them have to agree to the process. The next step is that the police then sends the file over to Anita, our coordinator. And yes?
I have a maybe silly question. I don't know, why is this necessary? Why is this happening?
Restorative justice?
Yeah.
It's to relieve the court system. The court system, if you are involved with the courts, it could take up to a year before things are processed. It can be costly. You have to hire a lawyer. Very often the victim of the crime, if there is one, doesn't have any say in the process whatsoever, and the result could be punishment rather than healing. The objective of restorative justice is to repair the damage that was done. Nothing, it can't be undone, but you take the situation and it's like making lemonade out of lemons. You've been given a lemon here, you've been given a bad situation, and you want to turn it around and make it into something positive. Very often the court system is not a positive experience.
No, I guess not, but, and it's overloaded, the court system's overloaded, so
That's
this
right.
is why this is the, oh yeah.
It's costly, and also we're thinking about the taxpayer, and we're volunteers, so it's not costing anything. Yes.
So it's just for smaller crimes, because you said the
Yes.
great problem was already in there?
That's right, yeah. That, for now, it's just smaller crimes.
It's more like native way.
Yes,
Like
that's
native
right.
jails. I hear in it natives.
That's right. Exactly. And New Zealand. This is the
Yeah,
primary
I
way
was
in
in
New
New
Zealand.
Zealand.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
I'm aware that these kinds of processes were commonly common amongst native cultures,
Yes.
and I'm just wondering if there are any native people involved in your process, or if there's any involvement of learning from them, like how they do these.
We're not following their process. Their culture has their own way of doing it. What we've done is we've adapted to our culture, and we've inherited it from the RCMP. And Nelson is just a little bit different from the ways the RCMP does it as well. So, you know, we're trying to adapt it to become most effective in Nelson. We would welcome Native involvement, we really would. But, you know, we're going to be having a second round of volunteers. We're down from the 20 original people, we're down to about probably 12 active volunteers now working on files. Yes.
So it's a private situation, it's not a government, it's not connected to government or anything like that?
Well, the coordinator is paid through the Nelson Police budget. So it's really, they found maybe some City of Nelson money, although I'm not 100% sure how that funding comes in. We apply for grants, Columbia Basin Trust and this kind of thing to cover our costs. So we're kind of beggars and we're asking for money wherever we can. And Anita is she's just 20 hours a week, and so she's half-time at a modest salary. So that's the only cost. Yes?
I've heard of a simple way to say the difference between putting people, restorative justice as opposed to punitive justice. And that was, we want to put people in jail we're afraid of, not that we're mad at.
Right.
So, I mean, a lot of people commit crimes and you're not afraid of them, but you're angry because
Yes.
they broke something of yours, they took something of yours.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean, you could be afraid of them too. I mean,
Well,
we've had situations where the file comes to us and the affected person they're really distraught and you know they're angry, they've been violated, you know, depending on what the situation was. You know, and it being a small community, they sometimes wonder, was I targeted? In one case I was with, they thought there was a relationship between the responsible people and the affected people, but that was no part of it. It would just happen to be totally random. But you know, in our small community, you can jump to conclusions. So the process farther down here, we get rid of all of those conclusions. We actually get a meeting of the minds. So the process carries on. Then Anita, when she sits down with the responsible person, when after she looks at the file and say, yes, this is a good candidate for restorative justice, it's about a 1.5 to 2 hour interview that she does, and it's a questionnaire she fills in. It's about 10 pages long, asking all kinds of questions, backgrounds for the person, but the main thing is the person taking responsibility for what they did. And if that answer is yes, and if it looks like they're going to be able to follow through with the process, then Anita gives a file to us volunteers, and so we go in pairs. Co-facilitators then will meet with the individuals involved, and the person who is responsible has to have 2 support people. If they're young people, very often it's their parents or uncles or aunts or neighbors, support people that will go through the process with them. Also, the affected person or people have to have support people as well. And this balances it out. This gives them support for going through the process. So then, as a volunteer coordinator, I meet with the family of the victims, the family of the offenders, and we go through the questions. Are you prepared to take responsibility for this? What did you think when the police arrived? What was your reaction? We asked the parents, you know, how did you feel when you heard that your son or daughter was in jail and you had to come down to the police department to take them home? You know, ask the responsible person, what were you thinking when you did this? What has been your reaction since then? What have you thought about since this has happened? Yes?
What if they don't have family with an immigrant?
Well, really anybody who is a support person for them. You know, friends, community members, neighbors, church members, you know, other immigrants, you know. But we definitely have to have a pair of people to support each person involved. And this is, in my experience, this has become very valuable. The people that are supporting, they actually come in with a little bit less skin in the game, so to speak. They haven't been quite so upset, but they're friends or relatives of the people who are affected. And they find ways, after we have our meetings with them ahead of time, to feel what the process is about, to think about it, and to determine what they're going to bring to the circle. So after we've had the individual meetings with each of the preparatory meetings with the responsible persons and the affected people, then we have a circle where we bring everybody together. And by this time, as co-facilitator, I know that everybody who is going to be involved has been prepared. If somebody comes in at the last minute, they want to sit in the circle, we say no, we don't want them to disrupt the circle, because we want things to be as respectful and organized as possible. Now, as a co-facilitator, my job is not to put any input into the process. My job is to basically chair the meeting and to tell people it's got to be respectful. And the process is that the circle, there's 4 phases to it. The first is to introduce people as to what's going to happen, you know, and the ground rules. One thing, for example, is that this is confidential. Everything we talk about in this circle has to stay here. The purpose is to heal the harm that has been done. This is opposed to the court system where everything is public. You've got your reporters and they're putting it in the newspaper. So the first step is to introduce everybody again to the process. We've done that in the pre-conference meetings with everybody, but now we're just going through it one more time with everybody present. The second phase is to go around the circle and to have everybody give their answers to the questions that we've prepared them to. You know, why did you do this? What has been going through your mind since that? Who has been affected by this? And to have the affected people, the victims, explain this in detail to the responsible people is very emotional, and it's very healing. So after everybody has had their individual talk, and they can say whatever they need to say, then we have an open dialogue where people can ask each other questions, people can add comments. It's back and forth. It's a discussion. Again, it's respectful and one person talking at once. And then the final phase is to come up with an agreement. What does the responsible person need to do to correct the harm that has been done? And again, as co-facilitators, I have no input to this. My job is just to make sure things are reasonable and restorative and responsible. But it's up to the people the victims, the affected people, to decide, okay, this is what I want to see. And the kinds of things that we do, we come into this agreement, and it has to be a written agreement with certain dates, final dates to have these things completed. Possibly a letter of apology, or a text or an email of apology, maybe or maybe not. The reason for not putting an apology in would be to revisit the event to the affected person. Maybe they don't need to have the details come out anymore. So this is discussed in the circle. Is there a letter of apology, yes or no? Community hours. If there's, the community in general has been affected by these situations. If it's vandalism, for example, somebody breaks into a car, takes some money or CDs out of the car, it doesn't just affect the person whose car it is, it affects their neighbors and people who they talk about, and everybody feels a little bit less secure in the neighborhood now that that's happened. So that's why we bring community hours into it, because it's having that person give back to the community, whether it's working at the share store or SPCA or at Our Daily Bread food lunch service. Really, there's a number of places that will take people. Mountain Lakes, if they get clearance through the police, they can work at Mountain Lakes if they want to. Kootenai Co-op Radio, quite a number of places, and we try to make it so that it matches the interest of the responsible person, that they feel comfortable doing this. And then finally, if there happens to be any money involved, if there was material things damaged or stolen, that gets evaluated too and put in the agreement. And then if there's money involved, then the responsible person has to come up with that money, get it to the police department, who then record it, and then it gets back to the affected person. So after the agreement is written up in the circle, the next person that comes involved is what we call a mentor. And as a co-facilitator, I could step into the mentorship role as well, or sometimes it's a third person. We always have two co-facilitators, and then the mentor could be one of those people or a different one, and they work with the responsible person just to make sure that the agreement gets fulfilled. And very often there's glitches. Sometimes the timing is not right. Sometimes they, if they're young people, they're busy at school, or their family's going on holidays or something, and we need to have some flexibility. If they can't meet their deadlines, we have to go back to the affected people, everybody who's signed on that written agreement, to make sure that everybody agrees, okay, we'll have a little extension here on this. So once the agreement is completely fulfilled, then it comes back to the co-facilitator, to our coordinator, and she returns the file back to the police, and then the issue is completed. If the person does not reoffend within 2 years, then what it is, it's a the file is then expunged. It's a Nelson police file as opposed to a criminal record. If they go through the court system, if they get convicted, it's a criminal record. It's on CPIC, and you have difficulty going through this to the states. With this restorative justice, if the agreement gets fulfilled properly, after 2 years, if they don't reoffend, then it's like it never happened. And I've been involved with 5 files over the past year, and just the meeting of the minds. When people first come into the circle, of course there's a lot of tension. It might be the first time that the victim and the offender have met face to face, and so there's some tension there. But we stress to them this is going to be a safe place, and it's amazing after everybody's had their discussion. When we're sitting down to write out the agreement, it's in a 4-part form, and everybody has to sign it. They go off and have some juice and cookies, and they're actually talking to each other, and there's smiles and sometimes hugs, and it's really quite profound. So I've taken up a bit of your time here. Any more questions on how this works?
If in a situation from a minor misdemeanor, and say there's a decision made that the person who's perpetrated that should put it right in some way, do some social, some social community work or something like that. Does that happen? And who would oversee that and ensure that that's done?
That's the mentor, the volunteer. I've acted as a mentor on 3 or 4 files where I will meet with the young person, whether it's drunk and disorderly or shoplifting or damage or mischief, this kind of thing. We've got the written agreement, and I say, okay, well, where do you want to go and put your community hours in? And so I make arrangements there, and there's a form that they have to take, and every time they go to the share store or to Our Daily Bread, The coordinator puts down the hours, and so the actual community people do know that this is part of the restorative justice process.
I'm just wondering, excuse me, what the statistical results are. Like, it sounds very, very good. Is it, yeah, what percentage does it work?
Because of the intake process, sometimes we will reject the application. The police will send it to us, and we'll look at it, and maybe the person during that 2-hour interview isn't cooperative, they're not ready to take responsibility, then it goes back up. And I would say, in general, of all of the files that the police, Nelson Police Department has given restorative justice, 80% of them go through the process and complete successfully. I've got one file right now where I'm the mentor, and it looks like it's not going to get completed properly. In that case, it goes back. The file goes back to the police, and it gets dealt with in another way. You know, we can't do everything, and you know, I can't do the community hours for this young person. They've got to do it themselves, and it's not happening. So, you know, we have the reputation of the restorative justice process at stake here, because, you know, if it gets known that, oh, well, it doesn't really matter if they do their agreement, they get off the hook anyway. That's not the case. It goes back to the police, and they have to deal with it.
Are you covered by insurance?
It's under the Nelson Police Department.
Because I was thinking of a psychopath, a sociopath, who could con you into sweet talk you right down to the end, and then if you sent the file back when you got a whiff of this, you might have some retribution issues on your shoulders as a volunteer.
I've never worried about that.
No,
and,
I wouldn't want you to worry
yeah.
either. I just want to hear your story.
You know,
I've dealt with some sociopaths. That's why I'm thinking.
yes,
that.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, very often the unexpected will happen, and you know, I just do feel that we have the.
So you're covered, in other words.
I believe so. Yeah, I feel confident.
You better
that,
check.
Yeah, that's right.
So if you have a sociopath on your hands, do they get stuck in jail, or do they do it psychological help?
Well, I mean, if they don't fulfill the agreement, we send it back to the police, and they, between the police and the Crown, they decide what they're going to do about it.
How do you decide if it's a sociopath?
That's beyond my pay grade. I'm just a computer guy. I don't have any training other than the restorative justice part.
But does he go to a doctor or something? Or
Well, when we have somebody that has committed a crime and they've identified that oh, there's possibly a mental health issue here, then part of the agreement will be, okay, you have to go to mental health or to a psychiatrist or a doctor to get this addressed. And we require the documentation from that healthcare facility as part of the agreement.
Yeah.
Yes.
I should probably disclose up front that I love this program. I just think it's a fabulous program.
We can't hear you. Can't hear.
Well, that was on purpose. If you can't hear me, you can't question me. But anyway, I just want to disclose up front, I love this program. I think it's something that Jerry has brought to Nelson, and he hasn't recreated what happened in Cranbrook. He's managed with a lot of help from the assistant chief, from the different officers, and people like yourself, and the volunteers, to come up with a truly Nelson approach to restorative justice. And I think, you know, the thing that I love about it most is that it would make sense and people would still access it, even if the courts weren't full.
Yes.
You know, it is that place where in Nelson there's a hub of people, you know, whether it's the ancestry of the people who walked through here right through the First Nations or whatever it is, from war resistors to Duke Boers to Quakers to, you know, whoever it is, for whatever reason, we end up with these group of people who would far rather take a chance on restoring things than victimizing the wound to an even deeper degree. And I just, you know, my heart goes out to you. You know, thank you for being involved in this program. It's stunning. It is absolutely stunning. And if you ever get taken out by a sociopath, I will sing at your funeral.
I was just thinking of kneecap being broken, not in death.
Yes.
I just wanted to say that Sarah Collinson is a psychologist here in town who works with both young people who are creating offenses and adults, and that she, just for everybody's awareness, if there is a question of whether someone is a psychopath, she has ways of assessing, assessing that issue. And I also wanted to ask you if you have any contact with her. It would make sense, perhaps, that the restorative justice people would be aware of her. Also, I just want to know how many adults you have. You mentioned young people as the majority.
Mm-hmm. I would suggest, Sarah Collinson, you say?
Yes.
Okay, I would suggest that you tell her to contact Anita Werner, the Restorative Justice Coordinator,
So I think you
as a resource.
should be in touch with each other.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. We do have adults. We've had, I would say, probably under 25 is 80% of the responsible people. But we have had adults, older adults, right up to seniors who have been involved.
So it's not so much the victim that would say what kind of community hours would be appropriate for the
During the
offender?
circle, what happens in the fourth part of that circle is by this time everybody's warmed up to each other. They're talking back and forth the way we're talking now here, and the suggestions. As a co-facilitator, I write down all the suggestions that come up. Community hours, this and that. Say if somebody had their garden destroyed, to send the kid into the backyard of the person and have them rebuild the trellis or whatever. We get the whole list, and then we go through that one at a time. What's reasonable? Here's what the crime was. What is reasonable to make that right? And so we go through and determine together. As co-facilitator, I just have to make sure that it's reasonable. But the ideas all come from the affected people and the responsible people and their supporters.
Excellent.
By the way, one thing I didn't mention on the circle, the Nelson police member that did the arresting or a counterpart is present in the circle, and they also describe what happened. There was one situation where there were two police officers involved, and the police officer described for 15 minutes on a blow-by-blow basis what had transpired that time, how they felt, and the danger they felt that they were in, and what they had to do. And in that particular case, we had a blood sample taken from the responsible person at the request of the police officer to ensure that there's no HIV or infection involved. Now, we were told at that particular circle, we had a judge there, excuse me, a judge, and the judge said that would never have happened in a court, that the police officer couldn't have had that action happen. But it in fact did happen, and so that the police officer can rest assured that the report came back clear. So there's so many benefits, unexpected benefits from this process.
Oh, yeah, I'll go after you.
Oh, I just wanted to say that there is the Peace Studies program in Castlegar.
Yes.
And I didn't know if you work closely with those, and one of the words that they use instead of restorative justice is transformative justice.
Yes.
So it's like the next evolution of justice.
That's right, yes. We have contact with people with the Mirror Center, and I mean, we're getting emails all the time, and there's training and sort of meetings that are happening. There's a group of us going down, probably not myself, but 5 of the Nelson Restorative Justice volunteers going down to Mission. There's a minimum security prison down there, and it's a restorative justice event where there's training involved and actual circles with the inmates. Yes?
I'd like to say that I think it's wonderful this because it puts back love, it puts back compassion, puts back relationship, it lets us know we're all kind of family, and for young people, a lot of times nothing makes sense, and nobody really cares for them, they feel. So I think it just makes more sanity and more heart-openings. You know.
Yes,
So
you're right.
and love, of course, you know, to be involved in that.
I can hear the saying that it is listening to whoever it is there, and listen to each other, and respond from inner listening. I feel that it is quite actually profound
Yes.
in this community. Therefore, there is so many justices on so many levels, and I feel that this one makes lots of sense. I feel very, very privileged that you came.
Yeah.
It definitely does. It's a vehicle that even the pre-conference meetings that we have with, say, a young person and their parents, it gets communication going within the family at a different level that might not have happened.
That's what I'm
Yes.
hearing. It is going deep to the roots of community.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask what they thought.
Yes.
I'm just thinking, like, what if you're being scammed? Would this be far-reaching, or is it just like through the phone? That's what I'm saying.
Scammed?
Yeah.
Oh, well, if the Nelson Police Department gets involved, like if it's somebody local and the scammer admits that, you know, if they've been arrested, they've been put in jail in the cells here, and they say, yes, I admit to it, then we could do restorative justice. But very often the phone scams are far away.
That's what I figured.
Yes.
But I just thought I'd bring it up.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say one thing, and it was about what we're all saying. This is amazing, because I know that a lot of young people in this culture don't really have very good role models as parents or family. So they feel thrown into the system, and they already have resentment for society, and they feel like victims, and they are angry and they want to take it out, and they feel their own justice, and so they've never had an experience of family, of true family. And for restorative justice, I can see that might be the first time that some people have that sense of family. After, it's a call for love. It's like reaching out and doing something. The restorative justice brings it back into alignment. So this is phenomenal. I'm really excited about this.
That's what I feel.
So this is really beautiful, and I know that a lot of kids have resentment for the punitive justice system. It just makes them more angry, and generally it's true. So it's really beautiful to have that buffer period, and I'm really excited about it.
And even if there's a difficulty between the teenager, for example, and their parents, as a mentor, I can be sort of another sounding board. What I very often do is I take these young people out to KC for dinner, and you know, we sit and talk over, you know, I fill them up with as much
beautiful.
Chinese food as they can handle.
Chinese
They
food
sit
healing.
home with them.
Beautiful.
Yes.
In spite of that, has there ever been a repeat?
Yes, we've heard of our first repeat coming up. It's a totally different scenario, but again, it's a young person, and very often young people don't really think of the impact of what they're doing. Quite often it's a herd mentality where you get more than one person involved, and they get goaded on, and you know, if they were there by themselves, they probably wouldn't have done it, but with somebody else there. You know, and this second offense is different enough from the first offense that we're probably going to take it in, and you know, because they did a good job the first time through, we'll give them another chance.
Oh my goodness. So he was influenced, or could have been influenced by somebody, like, why don't you go there and do that? In a
Yeah,
negative
that's
way.
right, yeah, yeah.
Huh,
We should
amazing.
probably move along.
Okay.
Gord, that was wonderful.
Yes,
One more question to say?
Yeah, I'm just curious about the average from the start of the process to the end. How long does it take?
There is a 6-month window between when the offense occurred and when it can go through the courts. And so we have 6 months to work. Very often, in some cases, the police have sat on this file for a number of weeks or even a number of months. And so we have to scramble quite quickly to get things working. But it's a 6-month time frame, and after that, then if we don't need any extension, then it's finished.
All right, well, Gord, that was wonderful. It gives us a feeling of evolving instead of relying on the prison system and negative stuff like that. So,
Community.
Yeah, thank you.
yes, thank you.
Thank you so much.